thought I heard you say 2001 in one of the counts there. How far back did the forensic auditor look at that?
That's correct. We started our investigation with regard to the City of Kingston in 2001. With regard to the County of Ulster, Urgent Task Force began in 2007, so our investigation only went back to 2007 in that regard.
What was the reason for starting with Kingston in 2001?
It had to do with evidence that we have. We have an evidence log of Mr. Matthews, which was part of our investigation, and that log began, I think, John, 2002, is that correct?
Yes. 2002,
so we started the year before the beginning of that evidence log.
Throughout your investigation, have you been able to develop any sense of what the motive might have been behind all this?
I don't have any comment on that. Yes, sir.
The evidence log, was it only money taking, or was there other, I'm sure there's other items logged when they seize cars or even property?
I'm not sure I understand your question, sir. Was the evidence log in question that we just mentioned?
Right.
That had to do with cash sums.
Okay.
Is that all the stolen money is related to actual thefts of cash from the evidence safe, or does it also include payroll fraud charges of time that he did not in fact work?
Okay, if I understand your question, Jess, the two grand larceny counts in the indictment have to do with his breach of fiduciary responsibilities and the theft of sums not involved. That's separate and apart from the allegation that he was involved in what you folks have termed double dipping, which is actually he was employed in 3 places at the same time, and those employment sheets frankly didn't add up.
So when we say more than, you mentioned $130,000 from the City of Kingston and $79,000 from the County of Ulster, we're talking cash.
Those were exclusive of the question with regard to his employment, the secondary employments as security.
Okay.
Will you be releasing a press release?
I have made a copy of the comments I made here today, and that's I obviously didn't make as many copies as I needed to, but I have some copies today, and I can issue that as well. If you need that, just contact my office and we'll do that. I've also made some copies of the indictment for those of you who'd like to see a copy of the indictment. Yes, sir.
Yes, is Mr. Matthews still in possession of his firearms permit?
No. He surrendered back when he was first suspended. Jid, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe when he was first suspended, he turned in his badge and his firearm. Is that correct? Yes, sir.
With regards to the charges related to Ulster Savings Bank, that is also the same type of thing that we're talking about with the other 2 instances where there was some sort of time sheet or some sort of documentation that shows that he had filled out that time while he was technically on the clock at the other 2 places as well, or can you elaborate on that a little more?
Yeah, one of the things that we asked our accountant to do is put together a matrix, if you will, of the different claims for employment that he made, and that involved obviously the Kingston Police Department, the Kingston City School, and in addition the employment that he had through the Ulster Savings Bank.
And there was found to be all 3 at the same time through that matrix, or?
Hard to answer that question specifically, but I can tell you that the count in the indictment regarding the grand larceny with regard to the Ulster Savings Bank was a finding of the grand jury that he overbilled with regard to those 3 areas of employment.
Was there, and is there nothing, I imagine, prevents him from seeking that employment, just like there was nothing preventing him from seeking the employment with the district? It's just a matter of the scope of what that employment was.
The nature of those allegations was simply fraud, that not that he was not entitled to work a second job, not that the work as a security officer was inappropriate, but simply that he billed for services that he didn't offer.
Very good, thank you.
So the total amount is 200,000 altogether?
Over.
Over.
Is there anything else?
And these thefts, I'm sorry, the earliest ones you were able to document go go back to 2001 for the city, and I mean, what's the earliest where you found clear evidence that there was a crime committed? I know you audited between 2001 and 2011. How far back does the actual theft go?
It appears to begin in 2002.
And it began in 2002 with what exactly? Overbilling the city for overtime? I think, I want to follow up on
Yeah,
Jesse's question. I'm not getting it here. Did he steal cash out of an evidence locker repeatedly? Did he overbill for overtime? I'm not getting kind of the nuts and bolts of what exactly he did.
The gravamen of this indictment is the first two counts of the indictment, or I'm sorry, the two counts of the indictment that charge grand larceny. The grand larceny counts do not relate to a overbilling process. The grand larceny counts had to do with his scheme, his fraudulent scheme, stealing money from various sources, which include evidence, seizure money, and working capital, both from the city of Kingston and from the county of Ulster. Okay. The allegations with regard to his overbilling the different employees, as far as the numbers, as far as the dollar and cents, which much less significant than the grand larcenies, which were exclusive of those acts.
So the grand larceny money adds up to, the grand larceny money charges add up to what? I mean, the total money.
Over $220,000.
So that's 220.
If he's convicted, what's the potential time that he could serve?
The grand larceny and the second degree is a Class C felony. It's the sentence is an indeterminate sentence of 5 to 15 years. Most of the counts that relate to each of the two victims would, by law, run concurrently. There's a potential for consecutive time with regard to the different victims.
And he's in custody right now?
He is not in custody right now. He was released when he was first surrendered by his attorney back in January. He was released at that time. He's remained released. He will be brought in for arraignment later this week.
And is there going to be any way to recoup the money that he's taken at all?
Oh, that's a very good question. In any time that you have an individual who's charged with theft, we have the right to ask the court to order restitution. I'm sure that well, I shouldn't speak for the judge, but we will be asking for an order of restitution for each of the victims, and I suspect that the court will grant that order of restitution. It's a far cry from receiving the money. So I do expect that we will receive an order of restitution when all is said and done.
Excuse me. Is he under house arrest right now?
No.
Where is he?
Where is he right this minute? I don't know where he is right this minute.
So he's not in custody?
He's not in custody at this time.
He's not under electric monitoring of any sort?
That's correct. That's correct. Yes, sir.
What was the amount of his bail?
He was not, there was no bail set when he was first brought in.
Okay, I mean, is he currently out on a bail?
No, right now there's no, he's out on what they call recognizance.
Did the grand jury make any findings, or will they be asked to make any findings about the adequacy of controls over these various sources of funds he stole from? Was there any findings of that from the grand jury, or from your investigator?
Okay. The focus of our investigation was the breach of responsibilities, the breach of fiduciary responsibilities that Matthews was involved in. We did not, our investigation did not lead us to any criminal wrongdoing on any other individual's part. As a result of the investigation that we've done, our forensic accountants did make recommendations to the different departments with regard to suggestions on additional oversights. Frankly, those departments were already in the process of changing their own regulations, and I believe that they have adopted most, if not all, of the suggestions that our forensic accountants had offered them. But our investigation is completed at this point. We are now, we've handed up this indictment today, and we're going forward with the prosecution of Mr. Matthews. We do not have an ongoing investigation with regard to this matter.
Were those suggestions that your auditor made to the agencies, were those made in writing?
Yes, they were. Yes, ma'am.
Is there another court date set at all?
No, we don't have this. The indictment was handed up literally an hour ago.
Okay.
And the procedure is that once we hand up the indictment, we ask to, we don't have control over it. The court has to assign a judge, and then depending on the judge's schedule, they schedule an arraignment. We have been in touch with Mr. Matthews' attorney. He's aware of the indictment. He's indicated that as soon as we find the date for the arraignment, that he will surrender Mr. Matthews.
Just with regards to the, just with the math and the time of this, it goes dating back to 2002. Can you give me any idea on the scope of the amount of money that was taken at one specific time? Is there any sort of indication of I mean, the quick math of it seems like to spread it out over that time makes it look like it's not as happening as much as it may be happening. But can you speak to that?
I'm not exactly sure what you mean,
Well, I mean,
with it's not happening as much as it's happening.
I think we were asking, are there any big chunks of money stolen, or was
Yeah,
it
I
a
mean,
little here, a
I got
little
like
there?
$100,000 out of the safe all at once.
Okay. This is an ongoing scheme. I don't want to get into specifics of evidence that's presented to the grand jury, but I can tell you that this has been an ongoing scheme, a systematic scheme, from 2002 until the time he was arrested.
Were there chunks though that were maybe thousands, tens of thousands? Specifics I understand, but
Well, we know one was 9,000, right? What the arrest on the original arrest for the felon.
No, that would not be an accurate statement.
Okay.
The $9,000 that came up initially was money that was missing from the vault. A preliminary review of money that was missing from that particular vault. We went much deeper once we found that sum. It's not. We did not mean to suggest that he took $9,000 at one time. And the best way I can answer the question is that it's been a systematic scheme to defraud.
But the 50,000 taken from the city, right? That's the total from the city, 50,000?
No, the indictment when you have larceny charges, by statute, they're broken down into certain numbers. So the grand larceny grand larceny in the third degree is over $3,000.
Yeah.
Grand larceny in the second degree is over $50,000. Grand larceny in the first degree is over $1 million. So the $50,000 is simply statutory language. The statutory language reflecting that he stole more than $50,000. As I mentioned in the press release, the sum against the city of Kingston was much higher than that.